I get to this video. What's coming in July? I said what's in July?
Yo, what's going on, guys? Sekapoko here, bringing you another 7 Listens Grand Cross video. For this, we'll be going over different units that I think will be coming out in July in 2020. And we're going to talk about all the fun things that could possibly be happening in July of 2020. And I'm going to go over different units on releases that I think might come out, just so you guys can give an idea of what to expect.
Can you do that lightning power?
I will do the lightning powers in the video, buddy. You want to see the video?
Yeah, I'll do. Let's jump into it. Yay!
Alright guys, so some of the units I think are going to be coming out to the global version coming soon are going to be some really interesting characters. First off, we have Red Monspeet. And Red Monspeet is going to deal 240% of attack against one enemy on his rank 1 ability. His rank 2 is going to do 300%. It's going to be the exact same thing as Escanor. And then rank 3 is going to be 500% and increase ultimate gauge by +2. So it's the exact same thing as the green Escanor ability. The second ability is going to be an area effect attack that's going to inflict weak point. It's going to be very, very similar to the blue Gother weak point attack. It does triple damage against any enemies with a debuff. And you can see it's doing almost no damage here against the enemy because he does not have a debuff. It's going to start at 80, going to 110, and then go all the way to 170 on the Japanese version. And on the original global version, it started at 60, I think went up to 90, and then finally 150. But these eventually got buffed for the weak point abilities. The ultimate ability on him is going to be remove stances from all enemies and inflict damage equal to 280% damage to all enemies and apply 2 ignites for 4 turns. So this is the exact same ultimate, I believe, as it might be Kane. I don't actually know for sure, but it does apply 2 ignite stats here, and you can see the difference in damage when you do apply the weak point ability. The other things about this character that's really good to know is that he's going to have really good substats overall. He's going to start at 40% pierce rate, 40% resistance rate, 10% regeneration, 20% crit chance, 150% critical damage, 30% crit resistance, as well as 50% crit defense. He doesn't really have any lifesteal, so he really doesn't get too much out of anything else, but he does have some good stuff. The first thing that's okay about this guy, though, is that he has a passive ability that's going to make ultimate damage, do 30% less damage to himself, which is not really super great, but it is a passive ability that you can use in PvP. The second thing that's going to have is you have a commandment, and this commandment is going to be available for both the red and the green version. It's going to make of all allies and enemies not gain any ultimate gauge by using any type of skill. So if you use a card, it does not increase your ultimate gauge, but if you do get plus ultimate gauge, like from using these abilities here, you actually will, of course, still get ultimate gauge. Next on the list, we have Green Monspeet, and Green Monspeet is a coin shop unit that actually gets released to the coin shop at a later date. His first ability has weak point. It's going to deal 110% attack damage to one enemy up to 165, and finally 275% damage with weak point. As you can see here, it does not do a ton of damage without any kind of debuff, and weak point, of course, triples the damage from debuffs. The second ability that he's got to have is going to do 220% attack against one enemy as his rank 1 ability. At rank 2, it's going to do 220% and then deplete 1 ultimate move gauge, as well as delete 1 card from the enemy. So the enemy is actually going to, on this card here, is going to lose a card and lose an ultimate gauge. Really cool. The third rank of this is going to be 360% attack to one enemy, and of course remove 2 ultimate gauge, as well as delete 2 enemy skills, which is really cool. The ultimate ability, of course, is the exact same as before, and is going to do 280% damage to a single to all enemies, as well go up to 420% max ultimate, and give you 2 ignite sets in the enemies for 4 turns. The passive ability on this Monspeet, however, is a little bit interesting. It's going to do make it so that ignites will increase the damage dealt by 100% if attacking enemies with ignite. So you're actually going to get increased damage heavily. You can see his damage has ramped up significantly because they first off have a debuff, and secondly they have an ignite stack. So he's doing a very large amount of damage. And this is a completely ungeared Monspeet at 60%. So you can see at a 3-star from him will do massive damage. Alright, and the next character on the list is going to be Green Gloxinia. Green Gloxinia is going to do 130% attack against one enemy and make them bleed for 2 turns, making them take 80% damage over every single turn. Goes up to 195 at rank 2, and then at rank 3 it's going to do 325% damage. The second ability for Gloxinia is going to do 120% attack against all enemies. It's going to be the exact same thing as Gother's Attack Seal. It's going to do 120% damage at rank 2, as well as disable all attack skills for 1 turn. And at rank 3, it's going to do 180% attack, and then disable attack skills by 2 turns. The thing that makes Gloxinia very interesting is that, of course, he has an ultimate ability that's going to apply Ruin. And Ruin is going to inflict damage equal to 560% attack against all against one enemy, and then deal 30% extra damage per debuff on the enemies. So if they have a bleed, attack seal, whatever, it's going to do extra 30% per one of those buffs. It goes from 560 going up to 840%. The passive on this Gloxinia is going to increase the hero's defensive related stats by 5% for each alive ally. So if he's going to have 4 allies alive, including himself, it's going to be a total of 20% increased defense related stats. Every ally that dies, though, it's going to remove that defense skills related stats by 5% and actually increase his attack related stats by 5% for every dead ally. So if he had 3 dead allies, he's going to increase his own defensive skills by 5% and, of course, his attack skills by 15%. The other thing that's interesting about this Gloxinia is he has a commandment that's going to, when allies and enemies use more than 2 or more skills in one turn, they're going to reduce attack-related stats by 30%, and it's going to last on the enemies or allies by, I believe, 3 turns. I think it is. And the attack-related stats debuff is a massive debuff. It also applies right before the card is hit, so if you're going to be worrying about the card being hit, it's going to, it's going to do that before your second skill. The other thing about the Gloxinia is that he is also going to have really mediocre substats, but he has a very high crit chance. So his pierce rate is 20%, resistance rate 20%, regeneration rate also low, but 50% crit chance. And because he has such a high crit chance at 50%, he does a large amount of critical damage, giving up to 150% crit damage, which is good, especially in a character like this, because he's going to be critting all the effing time. And this is, honestly, he has a really cool animation for his ultimate too. It's really long, but it's really cool. Next on the list, we are going to have Red Monspeet. And Red Monspeet is going to deal 120% attack to one enemy. On all enemies. He's going to do 120% against all enemies and provide this brand new debuff, which is going to have make it so that all enemies cannot use any skills above rank 1 for 1 turn. On the rank 3 of this ability, it's going to do all enemies are not able to use skills above rank 1 for 2 turns. So this is a really nice counter for Gother. The second ability, though, is a very interesting heal. It's a brand new heal that's brought to the game. The first is going to be a cleanse on rank 1. The second is going to be a cleanse as well as a 240% attack heal on all enemies. So it does a very large heal against your on your allies. And finally, the rank 3 is going to do remove all debuffs from allies, heal all allies equal to 360% attack, and in addition to that, as you can see here, give allies debuff immunity for 2 turns, which is massive. He's a very good character overall, and the unfortunate thing is he came really late to JP, so he's just really unusable at the time. His passive ability is when this hero's skill are ranked up, fills the ultimate gauge by an additional 1 orb. So if you do merge 2 cards without moving them or not, you get an additional orb ultimate gauge from that. So if you do want to get, say, if you wanted to move 1 card into another card, you actually get, instead of 1 for the move and 1 additional one, you actually get 3 ultimate gauge versus 2. Next on the list, we're going to be going over Red Galland. And Red Galland is going to have a single target attack that's going to do shatter damage against one enemy at 180% attack. Rank 2 is going to be 270% attack, as well as rank 3 being 450%. Shatter, if you did not know, is going to ignore all resistance rate on enemies, which will be very interesting in this meta because, of course, there's a shitload of resistance. The second ability for Galland is going to be an area effect attack, which is going to remove all a single target attack. It's going to remove all buffs from enemies and do 220% attack. It's going to be very similar to Green Liz's ability to cleanse and attack in the same ability. The second rank of it is going to do 300%, and finally the max rank of this is going to cancel all buffs and stances against one enemy and inflict over 400% damage. The ultimate ability on Galland is the exact same as before, and it's going to do 420% attack all the way up to 630% attack, and increase this hero's basic stats by 50% for 3 turns, and inflict 420% attack all the way to 630 per turn. The passive ability for this Galland is going to ignore 30% of all enemies' defense when strength attributes are using any kind of skill. It's a very nice character when you're using against any type of enemy, because if you're using an all strength team or a mono red team, this gives you the ability to do extra damage versus enemies. As far as commandments go, he does the exact same commandment as before. He's going to, whenever they use a rank up, he's going to petrify all allies and enemies for 2 turns that use any type of rank up. And of course, if they do want to use that, you're going to get screwed over. It's a really good Gother counter, and he does have the exact same substats as the blue Galland. Next on the list, we got my favorite Ban in the entire game, and it's going to be Blue Nunchuck Ban. Blue Nunchuck Ban is rank 1. It's going to do 240% of damage to against one enemy, and rank 2 of this ability is going to cancel stances as well as deal 300% of damage against one enemy. Then it goes at rank 3 up to 500%, doing massive amounts of damage, and of course, canceling all stances. His second ability is going to do defense skills down against one enemy, and it's going to be the exact same ability as Valenti's ability. But this is a character with massively more attack than Valenti, so you can see that it's going to do large amounts of damage here. The Green Lizhawk also has the same ability, and it does large amounts of damage if you have way more attack value. It starts at 180% and reduces defensive skills by 20%, then goes to 180, 30%, and finally 300, 40%. On the ultimate ability for the Ban, of course, is going to be the exact same thing as Nunchuck Ban, and it's going to do 350% of damage against one enemy and extort enemies by 50% attack and defense for 2 turns. And of course, the fate combination of this can be 50% additional damage and go anywhere between 350 all the way up to 525%, or going from 400% all the way up to 600%. The passive ability for this Ban is going to be called Extort Defense, and it's going to increase his defense by 50% of all enemies' defense. So whatever enemies on the field have X amount of value for defense, if they say had 10,000 defense each, then Ban would actually get a total of 15,000 extra defense on his character kit. Well, Nunchuck Ban has the same substats as he did before. It's a really good unit. In general, it's probably my favorite Nunchuck Ban. Next on the list, we can have Green Giant Diane, and Green Giant Diane is going to do 150% attack against all enemies on her rank 1, 225% attack on her rank 2, and 375% attack on her rank 3. All these are going to be raw attack damage abilities, just like Twiggo does on the red version for Rare Twiggo. The second ability on her is going to do 140% of damage against all enemies, and that's it. And her rank 2 of that is going to cancel stances and do 150% of damage, which is kind of weak. Why would you go from 140 to 150? It's kind of lame. And then her rank 3 of that ability is going to be up to 250% damage against all enemies and cancel stances. The ultimate ability, of course, is going to be the exact same thing as Blue Giant Diane. Oop, I didn't mean to skip that ultimate animation. Ultimate is going to be the same as Blue Giant Diane, but of course this Diane does not have the same passive, and it's going to inflict damage equal to 525% attack against all enemies, and do 525% all the way to 790%. The fate combination or combo combination attack unit for this is going to be 600% all the way up to 900%, giving you a massive amount of damage, and of course links up directly with Meliodas. The passive ability for this Diane is going to increase all allies' defense-related stats per debuff on this unit. So one of the thought units you could use, of course, with this Diane would be Red Melascula, because you could, of course, stack the ignites from Red Melascula or Blue Melascula on this Green Giant Diane in order to give your team entire large amounts of defense skills. Fortunately, people tried that out, and it did not work well. Overall, her substats are okay, and she's definitely an interesting unit, and she has very high base stats. Next on the list, we have Zaneri, who is going to be the primo unit, of course, as a supporting unit or sub-unit for Grey Demon for Hell. And she's going to do 180% damage against one enemy and disable ultimate move gauges increase for 1 turn. You can see that applies that lightning effect. Rank 2 is going to do 270% attack, and rank 3 is going to do 450% attack, as well as disabled ultimate game move gauge for 3 turns. The second ability for Zaneri is going to be the same as Blue King's Heal, where she gets a cleanse ability on rank 1, and rank 2 is going to heal 30% of missing HP, as well as rank 3, it's going to be 50% of all allies missing HP. The ultimate ability for Zaneri is going to create a barrier around all allies equal to 380% of Zaneri's attack and increase all HP related stacks by 25%. It goes up from 380% all the way up to 530%, giving you a large amount of large amount of shield on one character. The other thing that Zaneri has is she has a passive that's going to fill the hero's ultimate move gauge by 1 orb whenever the hero removes debuffs on allies. So if she cleanses off anything and uses Clean's Cleanse on anything, she gains ultimate gauge, which is very, very cool. I have used her a couple times in Grey Demon. She's okay, but definitely not my favorite unit for speedruns. Next on the list, we have Jenna, who is the current best unit in the entire game for Red Demon. First ability is going to do 135% of damage against all enemies, and the rank 2 of that is going to do 150% of damage, and of course infect all enemies for 1 turn. Rank 3 of this ability is going to do 250% attack against all enemies and infect for 3 turns? Probably 2. It's probably 2. I think it's 2. Second ability for Jenna is going to do cancel stances and deal 180% attack against any enemy. The fact that you can cancel stances on a rank 1 ability makes her the best unit in the entire game for the Red Demon, and she does a very large amount of damage as well. Rank 2 of this is going to do 300%, rank 3 is going to do 500%. Her ultimate ability is going to do as a new ability called Break, and Break is going to do 2 times damage against enemies with stances. It's going to do 560% attack at rank 1 and up to 840%. The thing with Jenna is that she actually gets an additional buff in this, where she is actually, anytime she gets a debuff on her character, she's going to get increased attack by 20% if she has any debuff on herself. So on Red Demon, of course, you get bleed effects on single target and get ignite effects on area effect attacks. So it's very, very easy, of course, to get that passive buff up during the Hell Red Demon, especially if you're not using a Petrify. For substats, she's pretty bad, and for overall other stats, she's pretty bad. But she's still the best unit in the game for Hell Red Demon because she gives you extra cosmetic rewards. Next unit on the list is going to be the Red Elaine. Red Elaine is going to do 240% attack against one enemy and have the exact same ability as Green Escanor, and is going to just, of course, ramp your ultimate gauge at rank 2, giving you an extra 1 ultimate gauge and deal 300% attack. Rank 3 of this ability is going to do 500% attack against one enemy and fill the ultimate gauge by +2. It's a very, very strong attack. Unfortunately, though, Elaine does not have any weapon cosmetics, making her attack very, very weak. The second ability that Elaine's going to have is going to be the same exact as Benny Maru. It's going to decrease all defense-related stats on all enemies by 20%, and rank 2, it's going to do 30% defense-related stats reduction, and at rank 3, minus 40%. It's going to be for 2 turns for the first 2 rank, and finally at the max rank, it's going to be for 3 turns, which is, you know, kind of weird. Hi, Jake. In a minute. Let me finish the video, okay? Last on the list, we of course got her Elaine's ultimate to the exact... We have Elaine's ultimate, which is going to cancel all buffs. Can I forward, please? Thank you. Cancel buffs and stances against one enemy and inflict damage equal to 490% attack and then stun enemies for 1 turn. The reason she's so good is for 2 reasons. First off, she's going to increase all status-related buffs by 1.5 times. So if you were going to use Elaine in any kind of situation where you wanted to boost extra buffs, like boosting Red Derrieri's buffs inside Crimson Demon, you're actually able to get even more damage on your Derrieri because she's the best sub-slot unit for a Derrieri. You're also able to get extra cosmetic rewards in Crimson by using her if you have her full kit.
The kitty was scratching me and her didn't want me. This is Tails from Sonic. I love Tails. He's wonderful, and now I made a channel by YouTube, and I need to tell you something.
What?
That's the movie thing on your phone?
Yes.
And that's the movie.
Yes.
Why do you have those 2?
Because I'm playing 2 games at once. Is that super cool?
Why you want it?
Why do you have blue stuff all over your mouth? Did you have candy? What'd you have?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.